In English, there's a saying, cut to the chase. It means get to the point, and despite how well established it feels, it's actually a uniquely 20th century maxim. One of the first recorded uses of the phrase was in the Winnipeg Free Press, published on March 1944, which noted that the screenwriter Helen Deutsch had a motto written on the wall, when in doubt, cut to the chase. The chase she was talking about there was literally a chase. Back in the day of silent movies, of which Miss Deutsch wrote none, but must have watched several, the chase was often used as the central set piece of the whole film and would have been perceived as the most exciting part of it. When looking at the classic examples, it's easy to understand why. In Buster Keaton's 1922 film Cops, for instance, you can see how bright the chase shines in the medium of silent films. Buster Keaton's character, unimaginatively called the young man, spends much of the movie's 18-minute runtime running away from the cops in elaborate and visually striking choreography. This results in instantly memorable scenes like Keaton catching the back of a running car, or a horde of policemen chasing after Keaton below a massive arch. Charlie Chaplin's 1928 classic The Circus is similarly iconic. Its chase involves an oft-repeated mirror maze sequence and an equally memorable but impossible to replicate scene of Charlie Chaplin mimicking an animatronic figure while getting some revenge on his chaser. In both of these silent movie chase scenes, you understand why Miss Deutsch's motto was framed the way it was. Without dialogue, a chase is the easiest way to set up stakes and create tension in the audience because the context is built in. Person A wants to catch person B does not want to be caught. Very simple, very effective. Miss Deutsch's motto was subsequently used in a figurative sense, which is how we know and use the phrase today, but movies of course did not stop trying to show us a good chase, because why would they? Even with sound, the chase still does what a good movie scene should do: immerse the audience, command attention, and progress the story. Of course, not all chases serve the same purpose. Some are used as setup, some are used as a climax, and some are used as a centerpiece. When used as a setup, the chase scene is often decorated with little touches to explain the character. Casino Royale's opening bomb maker chase is a great example. The movie, which was a 2006 reboot of the James Bond franchise, wanted to show you that it was a more grounded affair than the previous Bond films, filled with exploding pens and invisible cars. So the first scene of the movie is Bond on foot trying to chase down a bomb maker running parkour while getting more and more dusty and disheveled. It's very clear to you, the audience, then this is the more gritty Bond than the tux-wearing ultra cool ones we've seen before, while still remaining very exciting. And sometimes the chase scene is shown at the beginning of the film to tell you what the whole movie will be like. When you see the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark with Indy running away from Temple's defense mechanisms, you are presented with almost a short snippet of what's to come. The scene contains everything you need to know about the movie. This is a movie that will take you to exotic locations where our charismatic hero with a cool whip recovers historical artifact while escaping danger by the skin of his teeth. Opening with the chase can also be used to set up the plot. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragons, Rooftop Sword Thief chase, for example, sets off the entire film in motion while introducing you to what the characters can do, and more specifically how they do it. Watching our heroes glide from roof to roof while walking on walls immediately lets us know the rules of this world and the stakes of the plot. The opening scene can also set up an aesthetic. Nicolas Winding Refn is very deliberate in establishing his visual style in the opening scene of Drive, shooting his silent protagonist from commanding angles and under lights evoking nighttime. And of course, Drive also turns one of the main chase scene tropes on his head. It's not in our main character's interest to be flashy or speedy here. He wants to hide, so he runs away slow. This is a character that moonlights as a getaway driver. Remember, everything in this part of his life is in the shadows. We shouldn't think that the modern way to handle chase scenes is to put them at the beginning, though. For many directors, a chase scene still works best as a climax, but these selections tend to do this to evoke a sense of nostalgia. For example, Steven Spielberg's iconic movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial ends with an unforgettable chase scene where the film's young protagonists escape the adults in guns and suits on bikes that eventually end up flying, because in that moment, it's our childlike sense of wonder and adventure that are symbolically being chased, and the whole chase scene is put in the end to deliberately evoke a simpler time in cinema. A similar evocation happens in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and it's again on a bike, but this time the symbolism here is much more on the nose, as our main character leads his chasers through a Hollywood studio lot, going through different movie sets representing different classic genres, ending up literally recreating the E.T. bike chase. And we can't go on talking about climactic chase scenes without mentioning the wrong trousers. Happening at the end of the legendary second Wallace and Gromit film, the model train chase scene at first seems like a spoof of a chase scene, but with the escaping party being a villainous penguin and the chase being set in a living room and all. But once the railroad runs out and Gromit begins furiously laying down tracks, you realize this is actually clever and you're genuinely invested in the stakes. And that's one of the main things you want your chase scene to be: clever. Because running from someone in a straight line is only interesting for the first few seconds. We want both the chaser and the chased to be smart, so we can believe either can succeed at any given moment, thus raising the tension. A great example of this, of course, is the iconic freeway chase scene in Matrix Reloaded. Matrix, taking place in a universe where humans are being enslaved by machines as an energy source, had already set our protagonists as underdogs in the previous movie, and in this scene, running away from literal computer programs in a computer program that they themselves programmed, Trinity and Morpheus use every inch of their cunning to extract their target and evade its former captors. Knowing that the chaser is so much more powerful also makes watching the scene that much more tense, something you can also see in Alfred Hitchcock's 1959 thriller North by Northwest. In this scene, what makes the chaser and the chased so different in power is very obvious. One is a plane and one is a guy. A guy cannot outrun a plane, but a plane cannot stay still in the air. So Hitchcock keeps the chase circular, which adds to the tension. Every time the plane goes away, you're relaxed. Every time it comes back, you're scared. The plane's insistence starts feeling inevitable and unnatural, therefore downright horrifying. That tension doesn't always have to be between the chaser and the chased. Sometimes the setting also plays a part. In Ronin, the 1998 film by John Frankenheimer, the two cars that chase one another are not just battling amongst each other, but they're also battling the city of Paris. Careful to show iconic locations amongst the high-speed chase and making sure we see how civilians are affected, Frankenheimer raises the stakes by making us think how we would feel, not if we were in the place of the people in the chase, but in the place of the people on the street going about their day-to-day. That, coupled with a very clear editing style, makes us be that more in awe of what's going on, increasing our immersion and therefore our tension, which has been, of course, the key word. The tension of a chase scene is something that's hard to maintain. That's why these scenes are only a certain part of movies, not really the whole thing. But that doesn't mean there haven't been examples where this has been tried. Actually, one of the earliest movies and the first car chase ever put to film is Runaway Match, where most of the 4 minutes film is a chase scene. Made by the early cinema pioneer Alf Collins, Runaway Match tells the story of a young couple who elope by car, thus prompting the girl's wealthy father to give chase. However, the father's car breaks down, understandably, because this is 1903, and the couple escapes, managing to get married. This is, of course, cheating, because 4 minutes is a very short time to hold tension. 133 minutes, however, is not. The Blues Brothers, the 1980 movie by John Landis starring John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd in the titular Blues Brothers, is essentially a chase film. Belushi and Aykroyd, who play two brothers on a mission from God to prevent their orphanage from shutting down, are constantly chased by a whole slew of characters across the country. Their chasers include Nazis, a homicidal mystery woman, and a country and a western band, alongside regular old police, which are the centerpiece of the movie's iconic monumental chase scene where they just run on top of one another in a mountain of wrecked cars. Those wrecked cars form a mountain in the Blues Brothers because by 1980, just wrecking one car was not good enough to make a car chase memorable. Within a few years, even wrecking a mountain of them was boring, especially once CGI became commonplace and the audience started going to the movies expecting exaggeration, which is what makes Mad Max Fury Road that much more awe-inspiring. This movie, without a lick of hyperbole, is a 120-minute chase scene that goes from point A to point B and then back to point A, with the majority of story and character development happening on the move. The master George Miller keeps your attention with an incredible visual design. Every inch of every frame feels like it means something. Couple that with a bombastic soundtrack by Junkie XL and an incredibly charismatic cast of actors that anchor your attention, Mad Max Fury Road fills the entirety of the movie with what chase scenes are about: tension. With that said though, it's best to remember, the phrase "cut to the chase" is a bit of an annoying thing to say. Even Fury Road and Blues Brothers know that you have to pay for your chase with a little bit of world building, be it a mission from God or a clearly visible environmental obstacle. Because what makes a chase scene interesting is the same thing that makes Everest a peak: the climb and then the coming down from it. Without the build-up and the denouement, a chase scene is just two people running. See you next time.